Hello everyone, welcome to this new series on how to read birth charts. Because it's not an easy thing to do, and there is a system that makes it a lot easier. Now, in this series of videos, I'll mainly use my own horoscope. I'll mainly use my own birth chart. Maybe sometimes I'll use other people's to illustrate the techniques. That's fun, then you get to know me also. But I've just released a brand new birth chart report. It's 90 pages or more. So if you want to follow the same step-by-step as we're doing in this video series with my chart, if you want to have your own chart as the basis for that, then you can go to my website, vicdecara.com, and then click on the readings button, and then go over to the readings and click on the complete chart assessment option, or just go vicdecara.com/R2. That'll take you straight there. So the first thing in the report, of course, is a picture of your chart. And then the last thing in the report are some details about the calculations that go into it, because that's the first thing. Jyotish has three branches: Ganika, Hora, and Nimitta. So Ganika is the calculations part. That has to be clear first. But what we're going to do in this series of videos is focus on the Hora part, the system of how to interpret things. Nimitta is how you use your intuition within that system. So they are sequential. The first part is the calculation of the chart that has to be accurate. And then you need to have a system, a Hora, for how to interpret the chart. And then you need your intuition to make that system really come to life. So what I'll do in this series of videos about how to read a birth chart is show you the Hora system that I use and how I've developed it. So in this new reading, right after I show you your chart, the next thing I do is give you some introductory text about exactly that, about the Hora. What's the Hora? What's the system for interpreting this information? In this system, there are two key golden rules. The first golden rule is context, and the second golden rule is combination. So in this video, let's talk about context and how important that is. A birth chart is a symbolic representation of a person. So the way that you read a birth chart is very similar to the way that you get to know a person. When you meet a person, you don't usually dive into some private detail about them. Usually the first thing you learn about them is something general, or something which you can observe even just in general from a distance. Their age, their gender, whatever, their nationality. You can observe this from a distance and get a general idea of the likelihoods of the person. And then you find out a little bit more about them, and you learn about their educational background or their work or whatever. That's a little bit more specific. It narrows down the possibilities from the bigger view. And then you gradually get a clearer and clearer picture as you go about meeting the person. That's how you go about reading a chart also. It's very similar to the way you would make a sculpture also. When you make a sculpture, you start off with this big, huge block of rock. And then the way a lot of people approach astrology is, I want to know what my eye looks like. So they try to carve out the eye of this sculpture. And they want to know some details. Is my eye going to have a brown freckle? So they go in on this huge block of rock. They go in great detail, and they try to get down there to the rock. But the thing about doing a sculpture like that is it's going to break. First of all, you're going to have a weird picture of an eye without a body. And so what do you really know about the eye if you don't know the body that it's in? And second of all, it's actually going to break. The rock is going to crack if you try to do it like that. And what that means in terms of astrology is, if you go all the way down, like a lot of people will try to say, look, this person has the first lord in the 10th house, and therefore this person, blah, 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 blah. Right? You hear that all the time. People will constantly put comments onto Facebook posts or YouTube videos that I have planet X in house C with blah, blah, blah. What does it mean? And so the person trying to answer that kind of question is really challenged, because we could tell you what it means, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be what you experience in your actual life. What planet X in house C means isn't necessarily what you're going to be experiencing. because you have planet X in house C in a certain context. So the whole key to understanding information, any information, is to understand it in context. Even in the Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva says that if you want to understand the words of the Veda, you have to understand them in context. It's the most important principle. He says tattu samanvayat, shastram yonitvat tattu samanvayat. The words of the Veda are the key to acquiring knowledge, but you can only understand them contextually. He says it explicitly. And you'll find that all the time. Just people take words out of context all the time and understand them differently than what you meant. And it happens with law all the time. People argue about what does this statement mean. People argue about it with religion and scriptures. People argue about it, husband and wife, I said this. No, you didn't say that. So context is the most important thing for understanding any information. So it's especially important for understanding the cryptic information that's encoded into an astrological birth chart. We have to know the context of any symbol that we are interpreting before we can have a confident picture of what it looks like in real life. You can certainly know theoretically, and it's very important to learn the theory about what the sun means in the first house, and what the moon means in the first house, and what the sun means in the third house, and what Mars means in the third house, etc. To know all these bits and pieces. And in my report, I definitely give you all the bits and pieces. But the part that you have to do is understand context. This house, this planet in this house means this, and this planet in this sign means this, and that planet over there in this house and sign means this and that. What does this mean together as a whole? That's the most difficult, but most essential thing to do to make your astrology readings accurate. Look at this. You got recorded the first circadias, the first semis. That's their signal that the rainy season is ending. So that's the really special thing about this new report that I'm offering now, the birth chart report, the complete chart analysis. Because it doesn't just show you planet A in house X and et cetera, but it puts it in contextual order. So that reading through from start to finish, you'll be reading it in the proper order for establishing the correct context for the preceding statements and the proceeding statements. So where does this complete chart assessment report start? First of all, you should start where things literally start. Start at the start. It's the best advice, right? So where do things literally start? In astrology, the key start point is where the sun rises. It's always the start, right? That's another reason why the tropical zodiac is a more reasonable zodiac, because it starts where the sun rises. It starts where the sun rises over the equator. But in the course of a year where the sun rises. That's where the zodiac starts. But in the course of a day, the sun literally rises over the eastern horizon. And that is called the ascendant, the rising place, the place of rising. That's where we start. That's the largest scale understanding of what the chart is all about. So there are certain things that pertain to the ascendant, the nakshatra, the Rashi, and the amshas of the Rashi. That's where you start, getting your first impression of a birth chart. Just like you don't expect to, on the first meeting of a person, come away with all details about the person, but you come away with your first impression. And you hope that you get an accurate first impression, because it'll become easier to understand the person later. So in the same way, when you look at the ascendant, what you're getting is your first impression of the chart. It's showing you the possibilities, which is very important, because later on, because every interpretation has millions and billions of possibilities. You want to take the contextual symbolism. When you're interpreting something within that context, it's going to pertain to the things that are in the context, not the other possibilities. And there's one other principle in astrology, particularly in Jyotish, is that the moon is extremely important, and the moon functions as a second ascendant, symbolically speaking. So what I will do is the first look that you should take at a chart, and the first look that I take in this birth chart report, is to look at the nakshatra of the ascendant and the moon, and then the Rashi sign, and then the Vamsha sign for the ascendant. Now, looking at those means bringing things together. It doesn't just mean looking at them independent. Oh, his nakshatra, rising nakshatra is X, and his moon nakshatra is Y. So that means two totally separate things. No. What you have to do is figure out what your rising nakshatra is, what your moon nakshatra is, and then put them next to each other and see what do they do when they're next to each other. When things come together, they will focus on whatever they have in common, even if it's a smaller thing. Or they may focus on whatever they're directly opposed with. But the things that are not directly related to them disappear. So that's how you put two symbols together. So that's enough for this first one, for the first video. In the next video, let's look at a real ascending nakshatra, Rashi, Navamsha, and moon nakshatra, and how to put them together. So stay tuned and come back next week and subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. And don't forget, you can go to my site. Now it's a new website. I redesigned it, and you can get this report for yourself, so you could follow along with your own chart. That would be vicdecara.com/R2. Thank you. See you next time.